I'm sat here today with Rich. I wanted to discuss a topic that I feel is really worthwhile and always good to have kind of a discussion about, and that is what keeps you excited about collecting watches. So let's get right into it. Rich, thank you so much for joining me as always.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's always so good to sit down and get your insight. I want to discuss kind of what keeps you interested in watches. Obviously, I've been doing this, like collecting watches now for over 10 years. I don't know about yourself, but I assume you're kind of up there as well, right?
Yeah, around 15 years in like, when I say high horology, like more expensive watches, but I've loved watches since I was a little boy.
Yeah. So that's kind of the thing, right? Obviously, when you're in a hobby kind of this expensive, sometimes it's hard to get new stuff to keep you excited. But I guess to keep that enjoyment, what kind of gets you fulfilled as a watch collector? What gets you excited about a watch?
Yeah, so it's funny because this is a simple question, right? But it's a very complex, layered question. It's not just like a simple yes, no, black and white answer. I mean, what I would say is what draws me to a watch initially is the dial. I love the fonts on watches. I love the hands. I love the indices or the Arabic numerals or the Roman numerals. Like, there's something about the watch that has to talk to me. I feel like a watch is like, a woman, physical attraction is the dial.
Right.
And then, as you learn to love it, the movement's the heart.
Yeah.
What's
That's
really
a good
behind
analogy,
it
actually.
and what, powers it and moves it and so you're initially drawn to the dial, but over time you love the movement, right? So I think that like that is kind of how I kind of approach watches, but the dial to me is key, and every year there seems to be one or two dials that I just fall in love with, and sometimes that lasts, sometimes that doesn't, but I'll tell you, I find myself, I'm wearing a longer one today. I look at this watch, today I was driving in, I'm in traffic and I'm just looking at my watch. And I think that that's important. Years later, you're still looking at it and mesmerized the way that you were when you initially got it. I think that's super exciting. And it's funny because it's not like there's this end result for me, because I find that as I get older or more confident in my collection, I'm kind of digressing and going backwards. When I was younger, my ultimate goal was always to have like every perpetual calendar ever made. And now almost all my watches are time only. I don't even own a chronograph. I mean, so like to me, the beauty is in the simplicity.
Yep.
And I can't stress it enough, and I know it sounds nerdy, and I hope we put in a couple pictures of dials, but I love the fonts that the watch companies use. Just the script in Grand Seiko or the branding in A. Lang and Zona. Like, I mean,
Yeah, the old IWC.
oh my,
text
I
font.
love it.
Yeah.
International watch company Schaffhausen
Yeah.
blows my mind. Like, I wish they would drop the IWC and go back to the handwritten script.
Yeah.
I mean, but like that alone, I could nerd out for hours. Some of the old Patek dials, unbelievable.
Yeah, totally. I'm with you. It's funny that you say that, and it takes, I think, a lot of maturity as a watch collector to get there, right? Everybody wants kind of the big, flashy, kind of lots of complications on your watch, and as you kind of collect more and more, I've been at this point probably in and out of like 50 or so watches, like really nice watches over the last 10 or so years. And I want simple, it's kind of as simple, no frills as it gets. Really, the most complicated watch I owned, I think, was my regulator. It would have been the annual calendar regulator, or I owned a monopusher chronograph, which, in its own right is pretty complicated. But I think the more I collect, I'm with you, time and date or time only is kind of the perfect format. And I think as you gain more and more watches, you kind of appreciate just the simplicity. I'm with you a lot, obviously, on a lot of points that you mentioned. The dial is really important to me, but more than anything is the value. As a collector, like I don't have the means. I don't come from a rich family. Everything I bought, I worked very, very hard to achieve. So I'm a value conscious buyer first and foremost. To pay, I don't know, $10,000 more for a dial in some cases, like for a silver dial Royal Oak versus a blue dial. For me, I never saw the appeal of that, just because I'm not the kind of collector who wants to pay that much more just for a dial, but I do see the merits of it. But the one thing that still excites me is finding those kind of older references, stuff that's discontinued, and in some cases new stuff that I think is such a great value. Like just to give you some examples, I still think a Patek Philippe Calatrava, right? Time only, simple, is very undervalued. I think a Longa 1, like you mentioned, is still very undervalued. Like, I'm a movement first guy, but I totally appreciate, obviously, like a dial being the selling point, because that's what you have to look at every day. But for me, the value has to be there first and foremost. That's why I buy mostly pre-owned over new watches.
Yeah, and I mean, I even think of the watches that I own and watches that I've had that, I had to move out. And as I get older, and I do think, and it's not like I'm an old man, but as I get older, I do think comfort does become important.
Yeah.
Having a comfortable watch makes all the difference.
Totally.
I mean, I have the Saxonia Thin Copper Blue Longa. That watch is so comfortable. And then
so thin.
I mean, it
super
just
ergonomic.
conforms to the wrist really nice. You don't feel it. It has some heft because it is a gold case, but it's not overwhelming. And I think that, when you do wear a watch for 12, 14, 15 hours a day, you put it on at 8 in the morning, you take it off at 10 o'clock when you go to bed, whatever it is, like, it should be comfortable. And I think that sometimes we buy stuff that isn't comfortable, and you wind up regretting it or moving it along. So I do think that that's important too, when you look at a forever watch or something that you're going to have in your collection.
Yeah, totally. I think also one point that for me stands out is I kind of like to go backwards, because I don't know if you would tend to agree, but like even stuff from like Longa in the early 90s or like late 90s and early 2000s, I think is some of their best work. If you go to Patek Philippe, I really like modern Patek Philippe stuff, but if you go 10, 15, 20 years ago, when they first started developing their in-house chronograph movements, that stuff for me is like awesome. Like, you think about a watch company, 180 years of history, to have their first in-house proprietary movement, like that to me is really special. And I go back for a lot of different brands. I'm really excited for new stuff too. Like, I'm wearing a Land Dweller, and the new technology with the new escapement in the Land Dweller, the new bracelet really interests me. So I like to see innovation, and sometimes you have to go backwards for that. Or sometimes, you can look ahead, which is also really cool, right? A lot of brands are starting to push the boundaries more and more. That really excites me too, because especially with computers, CNC machines, all that stuff, it's more like easier than ever to build a movement and then actually put it into production. So to see kind of case sizes going down, because now we have the physical ability to make them smaller, and then also the ingenuity pushing movements forward, I think is just awesome. That really excites me also.
And the quality just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the movements now are unbelievable. I mean, even when you look at the technology that Ulysses Nardin is rolling out in the Super Freak, in any of the Freaks, I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. No, totally.
It really makes you think, like, how much further can you take it?
It's hard. Like, I mean, at some point you'll reach a point of, I think we probably already reached, like in the sense of a Super Freak, right? 500 plus components. There's a big diminishing return, but it's kind of novel and cool that they're able to achieve that. I mean, how much more can you add to that, right?
Right.
You'll reach a point where you just can't anymore, right? Or you're just making it more complicated for the sake.
Well, even look at a chronograph. I mean, chronograph's been around forever.
Yeah.
Longa made a double split, went even further with a triple split. But are those watches truly wearable?
Right.
They're thick, they're heavy, they're bulky. I mean, a chronograph's a chronograph. How can you keep expanding upon that?
Right. And the way that they did it was kind of slimming down those proportions, right? That was their answer, right? So like we have a watch in stock, it's a split second 1815, and that's a really slim, ergonomic, really beautiful, timeless design, but it's way more low profile and easy to wear versus a double or a triple split,
Yeah.
So that's also kind of the answer. And that's something I appreciate too, is brands come out with new technology. It may be a little bit unwearable or expensive in the beginning, but then the future iterations, are just, to die for kind of thing.
And it's funny because I want this, but at the end of the day, I'm really a purist. I don't want anything to change.
Yeah.
We're talking about this, and Parmigiani comes out with this new chronograph, and I'm like, I don't want that. Just leave the subdials alone. Let me have my traditional
100%.
dial that we all come to love. So it's weird. Like I say, I want to see this and that, but I don't know that I actually do.
And it's funny that you say that too, because, and I don't know if you noticed this, but the more I collect, the more my focus narrows in on like one or two brands. And of late, it's pretty much been only Rolex and Patek Philippe. But like, especially now that I can kind of get to the standpoint where I can buy a Patek Philippe comfortably, like that's all I want, and that's really all I'm chasing. And I know you experienced this. Obviously, you have like what, 3 or 4 Longas, right, in your collection, and then you just recently got your IWC. I don't know if it's that for you. Like, I would say 10 years. When I first started, I wanted to own like so many different brands and so many different watches. I had in my head like I'd own a collection of one watch per brand. Like I would never own the same brand twice. And now I'm like, no, actually, I kind of just want these 2 or these 3 or these 4 brands in my collection. That's it. You know?
No, totally.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me, I even want to mention this. So I have an Atmos clock, and I couldn't even tell you how often I just go in and just staring at this clock, or go to the side profile to kind of see into the case. Like, I do think so much of the dial, in an exhibition case back, in a well done manual wind watch, it's like having a piece of art on your wrist. I mean, my Saxonia thin copper blue, I'm mesmerized by that dial. I bought that watch almost 6 years ago. It took about a year for it to deliver, so I've had it for a little over 5 years. But I mean, it changes so much in different lighting, in dim light, in natural light, in house light, and I find myself just still looking at it. And I think that's important. To spend that amount of money. I mean, unless you have a ton of money and really don't care. I'm not there. So like when I buy a watch, I want to love it. Whether it's for a week or the rest of my life. Like I want to be having a wild love affair. And like I think that when you look down and you get that joy, that's all a watch needs to do.
Yeah, totally. And it's so interesting too. Like even with dials, right? There's so many times I get caught up in like, for example, the Land Dweller. I wish they didn't have the 9 and 6. And actually, in everyday use, it's awesome. It's actually so nice because the legibility is improved.
Totally.
And that's one thing about like collecting that I think has been so fruitful for me is owning pieces. Like you have to physically own the watches, even though you try it on in person. Sometimes making the mistake of like owning something, realizing it's not for you, is actually really impactful in your development as a collector, right? Because you actually get a way better sense of what you like, what you want, and then kind of narrow your focus that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's no different than a car, right? Mm-hmm. A 15-minute test drive is a lot different than owning a car for 3 months.
Yeah.
And being in traffic and on the highway and being able to open it up. I mean,
yeah. No, you can't really compare. But I have to, obviously we're kind of deviating from the original topic, but the point for me, right, is really the value. I think the value, and I think innovation is really, really big for me too. I want to see more brands pushing the boundaries. And what's one kind of genre I'd really love to see more of is skeletons. A lot of brands are doing skeletons, but very poorly executed.
Yeah.
But I just think like being able to see the guts of a watch, right? That's really nice. Like we took in very recently an Hermes that was a skeleton with the moon face. That was a beautiful watch, really beautifully executed.
You said Parmigiani movement, right?
Yeah, and it's a Parmigiani, because they use the Vaucher movements, which are owned by Parmigiani, which are awesome. And I'd love to see more brands doing stuff like that because you see so many, and Patek started doing that. Lange has a lot of success with the Lumen, obviously.
Yeah.
I would just love to see more of that executed at a really high level because that's what you pay for. You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
If I could wear a Lange upside down, like a data graph upside down, I would wear it all day long. It's awesome to look at. So I would just love to see more of that, honestly.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that when you're buying for the right reasons and what truly makes you happy, you're going to enjoy it. I think the thing that gets people tripped up is they start buying stuff for the wrong reason and they're buying for recognition. At the end of the day, no one cares. Most people are jealous and aren't going to compliment you anyways.
Right.
I mean, truly, that's where I'm at in my career. I buy what I want. I don't care what's cool, what's hype, what people want. I mean, I think Lange is the greatest watch brand in the world. No one ever compliments it. No one knows what it is. No one's like, oh my God, are you wearing a Lange 1? Yeah. Not one time ever. I've been wearing Lange every day for 6 years. No one cares.
Yeah.
You got to buy what you love.
It's a very personal hobby.
Totally.
And if you're buying for any other reason other than that, you're doing it wrong, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah.
It takes some time to figure that out, though.
Yeah. Totally. It's a long journey, but it's worthwhile, and it's been amazing. 10 years, obviously 15 for you, but it's really cool to see kind of your evolution as a watch collector. What you own to now today versus what you're into today is.
You're a Guilloche guy. You like the Vacherons and the Breguets.
I used to really be into that. I think the more that I collect, the more I want just something very simple. Like even I like the honeycomb on the Land Dweller, but it's very subtle. It's actually quite subtle. It's really not that in your face. So again, it's really about subtle, like just time only, to the point. It tells time really easily.
Does what it's supposed to do.
That's it. Not more complications or frills. But I guess let us know down in the comments below what gets you excited about collecting watches. Is it the dial? Is it the movement? Is it the innovation? Or is it something else? We'd love to hear your feedback. If you enjoyed this video, of course, please be sure to like the video. Subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Follow us on Instagram for all the latest updates in terms of inventory. And of course, all the different content that you'll see here on YouTube is added to Instagram as well. But Rich, thank you so much for joining.
Always a pleasure, man.
Always a pleasure. Guys, thanks so much for watching.
Thank you.